all it might take in the series is one monster game from McDavid or Mikko Rantanen, and that wins them the series as well too. Like, again, there's a bunch of X factors for this entire series. Welcome to the Checking From Behind podcast. Today is May 19th, 2025. I'm your host, Zach, as always, joined by my co-host, Preston, and we've got another banger of an episode coming for you guys today. We'll be recapping a couple of the second round series we didn't get to in yesterday's episode, as well as our conference finals previews. Let's start the round 2 recap of Toronto, Florida. The Panthers end up slashing and killing the Maple Leafs 6-1. They take Game 7. They're moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals for the third straight time. And everybody's not talking about the Panthers and how impressive it is. Everybody's talking about what's going on with the Maple Leafs. Is this Mitch Marner's last game? What's going to happen with Tavares? Should the core four just be blown up? Like, what is going on in Toronto? Because with the talent like them, they shouldn't have only two second round appearances in the 8, 9, 10 years they've been together.
Yeah, so they've made the playoffs every year since they drafted Austin Matthews. And, this is year 7 of the core four of John Tavares, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, and William Nylander. And the most they have to show for it is a Game 7 in the second round when they got killed. I think, you said people aren't talking about the Panthers and how good they were, and more so talking about the Leafs. Well, the Panthers were up 2-0 in this series. They didn't lose Game 3 in overtime for a chance to go up 3-0 in this series. They didn't get their ass kicked at home in Game 5 and in Game 7. I think that's why people are talking about the Leafs, because we know what this Florida team's capable of. They won the cup. They've been to the last 2 Cup Finals. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions. They have nothing left to prove. There was a ton of pressure on the Maple Leafs in this series. Don't get me wrong, but I thought they looked like they were handling it after Game 1 and Game 2, and then they just completely imploded.
It was interesting watching the Maple Leafs in the series because, like you said, Game 1 and Game 2, they looked like the better team. Game 3, they looked like the better team for a lot of that, and then Marchand ends up scoring
They had
the
a
game-winning goal.
multi-goal lead late in the game, and they ended up blowing it.
Yeah, you had a prime opportunity to go into Florida, go up 3-0 in this series, and all you need is just to win 1 out of the next 4 games. And that's light work for a team like the Maple Leafs with how much talent they have. And I don't care about any of the jokes like, oh, they would have blown the 3-0 lead. No, the fuck, they would not have blown that 3-0 lead.
I would have been shocked if they had blown a 3-0 lead.
Yeah. And if the Panthers would have tied it 3-3, I bet you they would have won Game 7. Okay.
I don't know about that. I think if the Leafs would have blown, like if they would have gone to Game 7 after the Leafs being up 3-0, the Leafs were going to get killed like they did last night.
And
the Leafs are a head case, man. They're their own worst enemy.
It is all mental. And I want to get into the Marner stuff a little bit because I've just been itching to talk about this. I am coming to the defense of Marner to an extent because, of course, he needs to produce. Games 5 to 7, I brought it up in last weekend's episode.
He was bad.
He's horrible, right? Games 1 to 4, it's like the regular season Mitch Marner, right? It's 2 different worlds. But everybody attacking Mitch Marner and nobody is okay. People are still attacking Matthews, but it's not to the extent of Mitch Marner. Everybody's like, Matthews is a goal scorer. You got to score, right? Everybody's attacking Marner. Nobody's attacking Nylander. Nobody's attacking John Tavares. And I don't care that John Tavares is a second-line center. I don't care that he's kind of under the microscope of Toronto. Where the fuck was John Tavares in the second round, right? Where was
none of them really showed up. Nylander was okay. I'd say the best player for the Maple Leafs in the second round was probably Max Domi.
And Matthew Knies, too.
Yeah, and Knies was clearly playing injured in Game 7.
Yeah, exactly. In Game 6, too, after he got injured, he didn't look good. So it's just all of them combined. And with Marner being a pending UFA this year, I don't see a chance in hell that he comes back. And frankly, if I'm Marner, even if the Maple Leafs offer me an 8x14, I decline that shit. I'm like, mentally, I'm so fucked up in Toronto that I just want a fresh start somewhere else. Go to whether Chicago throws $14-15 million at you, whether Carolina offers you money, whether some other team offers you an $8x14 million team deal, just take that and just get a fresh start somewhere else where the media isn't pressuring you so much. And you could say the argument. These are professional athletes making millions of dollars. Get over yourselves, whatever. But the throwing of jerseys after Game 5 was absurd. Throwing it on the ice, I respect the boos after Game 7 getting killed because nobody wants to see their team on home ice that has had the track record of the Maple Leafs and have the talent get killed 6-1. And we've seen the Maple Leafs in the past lose in overtime in Game 7 or blow a lead or lose by a goal. And you're like, you know what? The Maple Leafs were just right there. They had the game in their hands and the series in their hands, and they lost it. And you can argue they had the series in their hands against Florida as well. You're up 2-0. You go into overtime in Game 3, but overall, I think it needs change.
Are the Leafs 0-7 now in the Matthews era in Game 7 or
Yeah.
0-6? I know they're still winless.
I think they're 0-6. I'll double check that for you real quick.
I know it's at least 0-6.
Yeah, it is.
I think last night might have made it 0-7 because I think Don Tavares signed with the team. I think they lost every series in Game 7. I think the only time they didn't lose in 7 was when their first year with Matthews when they lost in 6.
Yeah. So we have, okay, this is in chronological order. So yeah, since John Tavares signed with the team, 2018, right? The off season.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, they're 0-6. Sorry,
0-6.
Sorry,
0-7 in Game
yeah,
7. So, I agree with you. I think that throwing the jerseys on the ice is stupid. I get the boos. I get being frustrated. I mean, what would you rather? Would you rather have make your team make the playoffs every year and just lose in heartbreaking fashion every year, or just not even be a playoff team?
Well, we
Just
have that
honestly.
with the Bills and the Sabres, so it sucks.
I mean,
Like,
honestly, I'd rather lose in the playoffs
Yeah.
every year because
Oh,
at least
yeah.
you have something to believe in. But I agree with you when it comes to Mitch Marner. I think it's best for both the team and the player just to move on. No, don't get me wrong. Marner's a great, great player, and he does walk. The Leafs are going to miss him dearly. I think Toronto, the fans might be kind of underappreciating how great of a player he is. I know he had playoff struggles, but he's consistently one of your best players his whole time in Toronto. Like, you cannot deny that. He's a 90-plus point a season guy. He's an elite player in this league. You can't just replace a guy like that. I'm assuming they're going to give Manny Nyes a long-term extension instead of Mitch Marner getting that extension. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll figure something out. I don't see it happening. I think that the more likely scenario is they find a way to keep John Tavares around for another 3 or 4 years. He has to take much less money than he's getting right now. There's no way he's going to get $11 million a year again.
No.
I could see it reasonable being around 6 or 7 for him.
Give him 2 years by $6 million. I think is a perfect deal. It's a fair deal. IMO.
Yeah, I think that's a fair deal for the team and player because I've read reports that John Tavares does not want to leave Toronto. And I mean, why would you let a player like that walk? He's a great second line center still in this league.
And he's also a leader in the room.
I know he's getting older, but he almost had 40 goals this season. He had a tremendous season. He's great on that second line, and have Matthews be that first line center. But, it is more than just Mitch Marner. He's easy to be the scapegoat, especially because he's the one guy as a pending UFA. He wants the big money contract and everything. And, he's earned the contract. Don't even get me wrong. Like, he's worth what he's asking for, in my opinion. It's just, I think he just needs to get out of Toronto. I think it would just be good for him to go. I don't know if it's necessarily a media thing where, like, he can't handle the pressure. I think it's just, I think we've all been there before. We're just in a really shitty situation. It's just your headspace, man. Like, you keep fucking up. The same thing keep happening over and over again. And like, if you're at a job you really hate, and you feel trapped there, and you finally get a chance to move on, and then you get a new job, even if the job's not amazing, you just feel better to be out of there. I feel that's the kind of situation I feel like is with Mitch Marner.
I look at it like that, but I also look at it from the perspective of you're fucking up, but it's not helping you when every time you fuck up, it gets put under a microscope by the fans, by the media, and then on top, now you're putting pressure on yourself, and now you're overthinking things on the ice. And I think it's a combination of quite literally everything, right? And the fans, they don't treat these players good. I personally, I hope there's Leafs fans listening to this or watching it right now. You guys are the worst fans in most of pro sports. You're down there.
I don't know. Rangers fans are pretty annoying too.
No, we're not talking about annoying, but treating the players like utter garbage. And of course, they're going to treat you when you're winning and everything. And there's such a high expectation. But hearing the players, the Florida Panthers, talk about how these players, like, they're getting so much slack for it, and that they get put so much media and so much pressure gets put on these players that they almost feel bad. And this could be a tactic. I heard this from the Whatcast podcast. There's two things that are happening with this. They're like, hey, one, Sam Bennett's gone. We're not going to sign Ekblad. Marner, come over to Florida. Or number two. That wasn't proposed
No.
on me. That wasn't proposed by me.
I don't see that happening. I
and
don't see
then
that happening.
and then that would be crazy though.
That would be crazy.
Number two, it's like, what if these guys are saying this to the media to be like, you know what? You guys are great with the core four. Keep the core four together, because then, like Matthew Tkachuk said on Spit and Chicklets this morning, they use the pressure against the Maple Leafs. They know how unbelievable they are, but they let the pressure get to the Maple Leafs and let them mentally beat themselves. And Matthew Tkachuk said that if they were anywhere besides Toronto, they'd be an unbelievable team and would have maybe an Eastern Conference Finals appearance at this point. Obviously, it's what ifs, but I'm just taking the words from him. And overall, it's just a shitty situation. And I do think that the Leafs need to pull kind of what the Oilers do, and they should build around a Matthews, a Nylander, and a Nyes. And then also you have a Morgan Riley. And then just build depth around there. And now you have the extra money to go out and spend a little bit more depth and help surround the guys.
Yeah, it's just a really tough situation because Mitch Marner is an amazing player, and I don't disagree with what Matthew Tkachuk said, and you could definitely see it in the game last night where Florida the moment didn't own them. That looked like just another game for them. They were controlling the pace of play. They didn't look stressed out at all, and the Leafs were fighting themselves. Like they were fighting the puck. They looked skittish. They weren't making the smart plays. They were just playing. They were in their own heads. You can clearly see it on the ice, and you can see it on the scoreboard as well, where they just were not prepared to play. I don't think it's a coaching thing. I think it's just the mental makeup of the team. Especially with those core four that have been there for so long and they've gone through so many situations like this where they have all this pressure on them and they've never been able to come through. I just don't think they can mentally handle it.
Yeah, and I definitely think that Berube was the right coach and the right hire at the time. And he mentally, he tried his everything to get these guys into the mental shape for this game 7 especially. And we saw Marner after the team, I think it was after the team went down 3-0 or something. There was a video zoomed in on his face of him screaming at the guys, telling them to wake the fuck up. And I think that's a little bit too late, or what is that saying? I don't even know what the saying, but either way,
Too late.
yeah, too little, too late. Like we saw the clip last year where he was basically crying on the bench or whatever, and now this year he wants to step up and yell at the guys. And of course, with him being a UFA, he clearly loves it in Toronto. Well, he loves playing for the team.
He's from Toronto.
Yeah.
Like he's living his dream. He's playing for his hometown team. And he's a star player.
And you can tell in the press conference last night that he was kind of like in his feelings a little bit. He's like, obviously his future's uncertain. He wants to still play for Toronto, but mentally, like he's not there half the time, and you can really tell it's screwing him up. And he needs to get out and just go be a 100-point guy for somebody else. And overall, with
We'll see. He's gonna have a hell of a market. I think he's gonna be the highest paid player to hit free agency in NHL history.
Yeah, he
without
will
a doubt. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about the Panthers and how impressive they were? Because we can harp on. It's so easy to harp on the Leafs. Everyone's doing it right now, but kudos to the Panthers.
Fuck 'em.
You can't doubt them. They're the defending champs, and until someone slays the king, you got to take them seriously. They've had rough patches. Like this clearly isn't the same team from last year where they kind of just dominated all the way up until they got to the Stanley Cup Final, and Edmonton gave them a good run for their money. They have more weaknesses on this team. They're not as defensively deep, especially forward-wise. Like their bottom six is not nearly as good as it was last year, defense-wise as well. But they just find ways to win. They no moment's too big for them. Paul Maurice gets these guys dialed into play, and when Bobrovsky plays like he does, it's really hard to beat a team like that.
Yeah, and this team, they might not look as strong as they have the last 2 years, but the thing that I've taken away from the first two rounds is It doesn't matter how they win, they just win. And
Yep.
it doesn't matter what the moment is. No moment's too big for them. And also they're clutch. They could be down 2-1 and they're not phased. They could be up 3-0 and they're not phased. And they play so well as a team. And they play this team defense so well. And for them and the Hurricanes, which we'll get to that matchup a little bit later in the episode, defense is their offense. Defense translates to offense because you look at the Panthers and they lock it down defensively and they go in
Mhm.
and they score goals. And when they get up 2-0 or 2-1, or if it's a close game, they trust themselves to play defense. Whereas if they were a team where they can get in a track meet and win like a 6-5 game almost every night, which they can, by the way, I'm not saying they can't, but if that was their style of play,
They're not in those situations very often.
exactly. If they were do that a lot more often than what they did, they
They
could
would have been
potentially.
eliminated. If they were
Exactly.
giving you the track meets all the time, they wouldn't be going to the conference final.
Exactly. And the way that this team plays defense, Bobrovsky had a great series, a much better series than the first round. He got a save percentage back over 900 at a 231 goals against average. And yesterday, at the halfway point of the first period, the Leafs started to pick up pace a little bit. We saw the Panthers have the first like 20 or 25 shot attempts of that period, and they were all over the Leafs. Bobrovsky had to make key saves in the first period as the Leafs were trying to push to go up 1-0 in the first. Obviously, they didn't. Bobrovsky came up big on multiple odd man rushes. So, goaltending, team defense is the key to this team winning games. And then they get the big goals from their top guys. And something to note, Lo Serenen is at a point per game right now. He's getting meaningful minutes for this team.
That
He has
whole
been
third
huge.
line has been dynamite
Oh,
for the
been
Panthers.
great.
Brad Marchand's been such a big difference maker for them. I mean, he is the Leaf killer, like no, without a
Mm-hmm.
doubt. I mean, I think he is the most hated man in the city of Toronto right now, and of course, he scores the empty net goal at the end of the game. I don't even know why they had the goalie pulled when they were down 5-1, but of course, as Marchand then scores it, he's got to score in a game where you kill the Leafs, right?
Yeah, of course.
You know, and even he had words to say where like he thinks the player he feels for the players too, and it's a really tough place to play, and he can acknowledge that. And it takes a lot for a guy like that to come out and say that. And he said this is the toughest Leafs team he's ever played against. And he's played the Maple Leafs more than anybody else in the league every year in the playoffs. So if anyone would know, he would know. And he said this is the best by far Leafs team he's played.
And Maurice even says something about the game was closer in Game 7 than what the score indicated. And again, it goes to show you, like, the Panthers are with class, too. Like, the Panthers could be sitting here and talking about themselves or being like, this and that, this and the third, whatever. But they're like, listen, like, the pressure gets to these guys, and, like, you can tell, and they're showing class. And that's what these Panthers are about. And now you have your third straight Eastern Conference Finals appearance, have a chance to go to your third straight cup, and you're doing it in multiple ways. You can come back, you can defend the lead, you can go in a track race, you can win a 1-0 game, for crying out loud. Like, the Panthers overall, they've been so impressive just to watch and just to understand how they win hockey games. And coaching, of course, a big part of it. You look at everybody around left in the conference finals, the two things they have in common: coaching and depth. And I've preached that on pretty much every single episode. They're in the playoffs. You need coaching. Paul Maurice is one of the best coaches in the league. You can argue he is the best coach in the league. Been great to watch.
Yeah. Then why don't we move now into the Western Conference series that wrapped up on Saturday night, and that was the Jets and the Stars. The Stars ended up taking a thriller in Game 6 in overtime. Thomas Harley with a clutch goal. I got to give kudos to the Jets. Connor Hellebuck showed up. The team showed up. Mark Scheifele had a really emotional game. He ends up scoring a goal in a game, literally the day after his father passes away. I can't even imagine, the emotions going through his head. And, really classy move by the Stars at the handshake line, making every player, going over and, giving Mark Scheifele a hug, expressing their condolences, very classy move on them. And yeah, tough night.
By the way, shout out to the Dallas Stars owner who, right after the game, he ended up actually having his private jet fly Mark Scheifele to Kitchener right after the
Yeah,
game. So,
very, very good move. I respect that.
and
That very classy.
yeah, and the donations for $55 to the foundation. So again, Tough night for Mark Scheifele, and it made it even tougher when he was sitting in the box as Thomas
Yeah.
Harley scored that game-winning goal. And impressive stuff by the Stars too. And Ottinger saved the game for the Stars. Did you see that save that he had?
No, I did not. I didn't watch anything. I might have saw Harley's goal.
Yeah, so Jake Ottinger is on the left post, so his left post, and wide
Was this in
open.
overtime?
No, this was in the third period.
Okay.
So there's a wide open cage, and Winnipeg Jets player, don't know who it is, don't really give a fuck, he shoots it, and Jake Ottinger, you know how we're like a goalie like sees the wide open cage and sees the guy wide open and they just kind of reach their hope and their stick gets to it and everything, but it
Yeah.
goes in. This one, that was the exact one. He didn't dive over, he didn't like slide over, he just reached his paddle and it hit off the paddle and went wide, and it was impressive. And eventually, of course, game goes into overtime and they win it. And now they're going back to their fourth Western Conference Finals in the last 6 seasons. And this is a crazy set that I have for you. Peter DeBoer, in his last 8 seasons, he has been to the Western Conference Finals 7 times.
In my opinion, Peter DeBoer is the best coach you can hire if you don't want to win the Stanley Cup. Because he's been great everywhere he's gone. He took San Jose to the Stanley Cup Final. He took Dallas to the Stanley Cup Final. He got Vegas to the Conference Final, I think, once or twice. Deep playoff runs every year is in Vegas. Takes over to Dallas. They immediately are, a cup contenders. But he also took them to the Cup Final. Was he the coach the year they made it to the Cup Final? Yeah.
Yep.
Like this guy. No, I don't think he was yet.
Who was then?
I think I want to say it was Rick Bowness. Because Peter DeBoer was still coaching Vegas because he got fired the year after they lost to Montreal.
Why did it just bring up the first thing about him going back to the conference finals when I looked up? Clearly, fucking Dallas Stars head coach 2021 Cup Final. Okay. Whatever. Anyways, carry on.
I think it was Rick Bowness.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because he had retired and then he came out of retirement to coach the Jets.
Yeah.
But Peter DeBoer is a great coach. He's the best. It would be really interesting if they end up matching up with the Panthers in the Cup Final and that goes to a Game 7, because Paul Maurice has also never lost a Game 7 in his coaching career. That would be really interesting to see. But we got to get there first.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in my opinion, with this series between the Jets and the Stars, I think the better team just straight up won. And that's what usually happens when you get. That's what I love about the NHL playoffs is 9.99999 times out of 10 the better team's going to win a 7-game series.
And all
just straight up.
And all the top 4 teams in the league in the regular season are all eliminated now, and that just goes to show you the parity in the NHL too. And over with the Winnipeg Jets, you have a couple questions. Did Ehlers play his last game in a Jets uniform because he is a pending UFA as well? That's an iffy one. He's on the fence for me. I'm like, I could see him coming back with the Jets, but also I'm like, he could also leave in free agency. And also
market.
Yeah, he definitely will. And I don't think Connor Hellebuyck played that bad outside of a couple games in the series as well.
No, he played good enough for them to win in Game 6.
Oh yeah, he did. And Game 5 was a little bit shaky, but he looked better. No, it wasn't shaky. Sorry, I'm thinking of Game 4. Game 5, he had a shutout.
Yeah.
Game 3,
he had 2 shutouts in the series.
Yeah, back-to-back home shutouts. Game 3 and Game 5. So he was good. And again, same thing that we've talked about with Hellebuyck. It's all mental. He has the physical attributes. We see it in the regular season how good he can be. We've seen parts of it in the postseason how good he can be. But it's just mentally. And I think Hellebuyck can overcome it. And I think it's a lot easier for him to overcome it in a market of Winnipeg where, sure, the NHL media is going to have a microscope on him because he's about to win his 3rd Vezina, back-to-back Vezina winner, most likely unanimous Vezina winner, and a Hart finalist, whatever. So the NHL media is going to be on him. But the Winnipeg media, though, they're not as on him as the NHL media. They're one of the smallest markets, if not the smallest market in the entire league. Go out and just play hockey. And I'm hoping that if the Winnipeg Jets make the playoffs next year, that Connor Hellebuyck plays out of his mind and plays like the regular season self, because this team, frankly, if they get regular season Connor Hellebuyck, they go to the finals. Like, that's how good Connor Hellebuck can be. And that's how good Scheifele is and Kyle Connor. And if they bring back Ehlers, Josh Morrissey ended up getting hurt halfway through game 6. That did not look good. We'll see the status on him throughout the summer and, if he'll be ready for training camp. So overall, this was an entertaining series.
I mean, I do think the Jets will make the playoffs next year, even if Ehlers does walk in free agency. I mean, that you have the best goalie in the league, I think. Unless he has a horrifically bad season, I think the Jets are good. Are their playoff team next year? I think the biggest thing for the Jets, especially specifically for Connor Hellebuck, was just getting out of the first round. I think it was a mental block for him. Outside of a couple games in this series, he was pretty damn good in the second round. Like I wouldn't put this series on him. If they would have lost to St. Louis in the first round, I would have put that series on him because he was downright awful in 3 of the games they lost. Like downright horrific.
I don't.
But this game, yeah, but this series you can't put them on him. Dallas is just an overwhelming team. And it's gonna they get the rematch they probably wanted in the Western Conference Final against the Edmonton Oilers. That should be a really really fun series. But Dallas, they got healthy going into the second round, which is insane. They get Miro Heiskanen back, they get Jason Robertson back, and you add that to the crazy depth they already had. Like this is a really hard team to beat, really really hard team to beat.
Quick timeout before we get back to the episode, you beauties. As someone like myself who's into fitness and needs a little bit of an extra boost before a lift, or maybe I need just a little bit of energy before my next hockey game, and even when doing pod stuff to bring you guys the best content possible, W always has me covered. Whether you needed to stay awake at work or need a little bit of a jolt to get you through the day, W will always provide you that spark you need. There's no sugar, no crash, no artificial flavors or artificial dyes, just flavored caffeine. 150 milligrams of caffeine and 1 serving, which is equivalent to 2 cups of coffee. Make sure to head over to w.gg and use code CFB Pod for 10% off any order. Give it to us, the conference finals preview. We're going to start in the Western Conference. The series me and you have been waiting for. This is the Preston against Zach series. Dallas against Edmonton. And for
Both
those
of our preseason Stanley Cup picks, by the way.
Let's go. And obviously that gives away who we have winning the series. Like we're not going to go. We've been not going against our word with either team. We're going to stick to it, of course. And it's a rematch of last season's It's the rematch of last season's conference final where Dallas ended up winning in 6 games. They won the last 3 games to take it.
Edmonton won.
Yes. Did I say?
I
said
Dallas.
Edmonton.
Yeah.
Oh, Edmonton. Sorry, I'm thinking that Dallas is going to win it this year. Excuse me, because they will. Yeah. So you have better. Both teams are much better than a year ago, and on paper, maybe you have Edmonton who doesn't jump off the page for you depth wise, but when you have a Corey Perry, when you have a Evander Kane, when you have a Janmark, when you have all of these guys, a Connor Brown, providing a lot of depth scoring for you guys, they're the better team. And with Dallas, of course, they're going to be better with the Mikko Rantanen and Mikhail Granlund and bringing in Cody Ceci, and Jake Ottinger looks good. He looks really good. And same thing with Stuart Skinner, who is riding on back-to-back shutouts right now. And this series is going to be fun to watch, and it's going to end up going 7 games.
I mean, I think the defining thing for this series to me is going to be Stuart Skinner. I think you got to go with him as the starter. Pickard is probably going to, I'm assuming he's healthy now. They've had a few days off. But you got to go with Skinner. He's the hot goalie right now. He was really great down the stretch against Vegas to close out that series. Played phenomenal in Game 5. Phenomenal. Are you going to get the Stuart Skinner you got last year in the Western Conference Final where, I would argue that Dallas was better than Edmonton last year on paper, like their team. But the depth stepped up and Stuart Skinner played lights out. And I think for Edmonton to beat Dallas this year again, it's going to be on Stuart Skinner's shoulders, unfortunately, for better or for worse.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that because both teams on paper, they match up really well. And right now, Dallas clearly has the goaltending advantage unless Stuart Skinner continues to play how he's been playing the last 3 games. And that's just that. Like, even though the Oilers have missed Ekholm, they've performed really good. And Ekholm is going to end up missing games 1 and 2, but he has a possibility of returning at some point in the series.
That's big if he could come back and actually look healthy at all.
Yeah, and I have personally doubted Edmonton in round one. I thought LA had the better depth. Well, clearly it doesn't matter when your coach is fucking horrific, by the way. Number two, I thought Vegas had the better depth, and Edmonton just killed them everywhere, all facets of the game. And I think Dallas has the better depth, but at the same time, Edmonton's probably going to slap me in the face again. And it's kudos to No Block. It's kudos to everybody on this team for taking a team first mentality and blocking shots. You're getting sticks and lanes. You're getting pucks on net, getting dirty goals. And the game 5 goal against Vegas, where Kapanen ends up winning it in overtime, it was a dirty goal. The puck got to the net and he found it and he ended up banging it home right at the crease. That's what Edmonton has done the entire playoffs. And you're not needing McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard to play ridiculous hockey, because you want to know something? They're playing the same way the entire team's playing. Defense mentality first, and then defense leave the offense, whether it's them scoring or whether it's the fourth line grinder who gets 8 minutes a night scoring. Like that's just how this Edmonton team has been going the entire playoffs. And over on Dallas, this team the last few years has been more known as like a gritty team. Like, get the dirty goal. We'll work the corners. We'll work the puck around. They're a lot more skillful team now than they have been in the past. Adding a guy like Rantanen and Granlund, and now you have a guy like Wyatt Johnston who is flying around the ice, and a Matthew Shane who is clutch for you guys when you need him to be, and Amir Heiskanen and Thomas Harley, who has really broken out. So it's going to be really interesting to see these two teams that have a lot of skill but also have a ton of depth. And right now, I think these two teams have some of the best depth in the entire league. Coming into the playoffs, it was evident, and we're about to see, we're either going to see every game be like 2-1 or every game be like 4-3.
I gotta say though, for like the out Oilers, because you went on the Dallas side, I'll go on the Edmonton
Mm-hmm.
side, because I think we both knew who we're gonna pick for this
Yeah.
series. But there's the buy-in from the top of the lineup all the way down to the bottom has been incredible. A really great moment for me, I think, that really defines why Edmonton has such a deep run this year is just the play from their captain. You can look at the points. Yeah, he's gonna put up a lot of points, but it's just there was a great play in game 5. I don't know if it was an overtime or it was late in the game, and there was a turnover, and Vegas had a 2-on-1 coming back the other way. Really good chance to get the game-winning goal, because in that game, honestly, whoever scored the first goal, even if it was the third period, I think it might have been overtime, but whoever scored first in that game was winning the game. And McDavid turned on the Jets and back-checked harder. That might have been the fastest I've ever seen him skate in an NHL game. And, he goes up going really hard into the boards, but he broke up the play. And when you see your captain giving that his all like that and every single play, how can you not get fired up as his teammate? And I think his leadership, just leading by example of how you want you to play in the playoffs. And I think that's what separates, the Oilers, because you can argue like their depth isn't the greatest compared to other teams, especially I thought Vegas had a better team on paper. But when you have great leadership like that, and in the playoffs, and when your captain's that dialed in and willing to literally put his body on the line for every kind of play, that motivates everybody so much. And he's like, you know what? If he's gonna bust his ass, I'm gonna bust my ass. I mean, not that you should be questioning it in the playoffs anyway, but I think that's been a big thing where, and guys are stepping up when they need to. They've had unsung heroes. Game 5, Kasperi Kapanen, overtime winner. You're just getting guys step up when they need to. It's no man's bigger than the team, and everyone's just doing their job.
When you run into the issue of, I'm the superstar player, I'm going to play minimal defense, but I'm going to put up 2 points per game, you run into the issue of, we're second round exits. And, and then in the press conference
Maple Leafs.
interview. Wait, what'd you say?
Maple Leafs.
Well, they can't even score. That's the.
I know, but I'm saying your captain can't even show up and score.
Oh yeah, of course. And then in the press conference interview, they get asked, how do you feel? Yeah, man, like I feel like shit, and we got to do more and everything. Like, but then you have a team like the Oilers where McDavid on paper and Draisaitl on paper, it doesn't look like they're putting up the offensive numbers you'd expect them to. But watching the games, they're back checking, they're forward checking, they're putting
Mm-hmm.
110% into every single shift, whether it's offensive, defensive, neutral zone, transition, whatever phase of the game it is, and they're putting their bodies on the line, and they now know what it takes to get to the finals. And this is the thing about the Oilers. If they get past Dallas and get to the finals, I think the
I think
Oilers
they're
will
winning
end
the
up winning
cup.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
agree with you.
genuinely agree. I genuinely think that, and that
'Cause
will be. Go ahead.
yeah, a lot of the times when you see a team, make a deep run of the playoffs, they get to the finals, get so close. That's a defining moment for a team because, you know, the guys on the team they're there long for like on long-term contracts and everything. They finally see what it takes, to get to the top of the mountain, how hard it is. You saw it a couple years with Florida. They make it all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. You know, very injured. They end up getting smacked in five to Vegas. But some teams, that's a defining moment where they either it's too much for them to handle and they never get back there, or they take that as a challenge and are even more determined next year. And I think that's what's driving the Oilers right now. And I think that's part of what drove Florida last year as well. Is you got so close to the top of the mountain, now you know what little more you need to get to the top of the summit. And I think that's the Oilers were a goal away from winning a Stanley Cup last year. And I think they're more driven than ever. I think Connor McDavid has no quit in him. I think that leadership group in Edmonton's great. Chris Knobloch's done a tremendous job getting the boys dialed in, and everyone's stepped up when they needed to. Even when Calvin Pickard played those few games, he wasn't tremendous, he wasn't amazing, but he did enough for him to win games. And when you see a guy battling your backup goalie, who's been a mid backup goalie all season, battling, playing hard like that, it gets you going.
That a team gets a taste of how close you get to that Stanley Cup. You fail, and it only makes the best players want it even more. If
Hmm.
you end up not having that drive, I'm sure every player in the NHL has a drive, but
That's what
there's
separates the greats from the good.
exactly to do whatever it takes to possibly get back there and then eventually
Another
win the
good
thing.
example, Sidney Crosby with the Penguins. They lose first time in the Stanley Cup Final. They lose to the Detroit Red Wings. They're right back the next year against the same team and they win.
Yeah, and that could be a possibility this year too with the Panthers and
The
Oilers.
greats always find a way.
Exactly. And the Stars can not the literal Dallas Stars, but like the star players can do whatever they want for either team, but ultimately it's going to come down to, are you going to get a goal from Matthias Janmark that's going to be huge, or Colin Blackwell, or whoever else it may be, or Sam Steele, and that could be the determining factor as well. And again, it might all it might take in the series is one monster game from McDavid or Mikko Rantanen that wins them the series as well too. Like, again, there's a bunch of X factors for this entire series. Hit them with your predictions.
I mean, you already know. I'm loyal to the oil, baby, all day. I mean, I can't just say what I said about the Oilers and not pick them. Give me the Oilers in 6.
I had the Stars in 7. I think the series is going 7, and if it does end up going 6, I do think it goes in the Oilers' favor because I've seen this movie before where they'll just gain this momentum and they'll just end up eventually rolling teams over. We saw it in the first round, we saw it in the second round, but if it does go 7, I think it's going to work more in the Stars' favor. To the Eastern Conference Finals, we have the most boring series to possibly ever exist: the Carolina Hurricanes against the Florida Let's Take a Nap Panthers. They ended up meeting in the 2023 conference finals. Of course, we all know the Panthers swept them to move on to the Stanley Cup Finals. However, though, that series was a lot closer than what people might think a sweep is. Every game was a one-goal game, and there was even an overtime game that went
Game
like,
one went to like 3 overtimes, didn't it?
yeah, it did. It did. And the
I
second Kachuk,
remember Kachuk had that like epic walk-off goal where he scored. He's like, let's get off, get off, get off.
yeah, they just fucking let's go.
Yeah.
I do think though that this series is going to be an interesting one. Like, I
Well,
think
I
this is
think
going to
so
be
too.
more of
Yeah.
like a grudge match. We're not going to see a ton of high flying, but you talk about a lot. That game one is always a feeling out process. I think this series screams that.
Oh,
And
this is gonna be like a long term. This is gonna be like a chess game between two grandmasters. Every move is gonna be super calculated. Two really good coaches that know what they're doing. And I think there's a lot more pressure on the Hurricanes. they've been to the conference final twice under Rod Brind'Amour. They got swept both times. I mean, closer than the series would look. Lead you to believe. They did look a little bit overwhelmed the first time they made it to the conference final against the Boston Bruins in 2019. But like you said, in 2022, they were in every game. They were all tight. They just couldn't score.
Yeah, and you have the Hurricanes who like to impose their defensive game and get pucks on net and get traffic and deflections and work the corners and everything. You have the Panthers who kind of are the same way. They're one of the highest. They're one of the teams with the highest rate in dumping and chasing. They want to work the corners. They want to work below the goal line. They want to get the puck to the point, get the defenseman involved, and then get the opposing defense moving, and then eventually find open space and bang it home right beside the net. And this is a series where you're going to see a lot of grittiness. You're going to see a lot of toughness. I'm looking for Sam Bennett to make an impact. I know Matthew Tkachuk is not 100% at all, but I'm looking for him to make somewhat of an impact. And
really quick turnaround for the Panthers too. They played Game 7 yesterday, and now they have Game 1 tomorrow.
Yeah, and you would think that maybe the Western Conference Finals would be on Tuesday instead or whatever, but then the travel and everything, like I get that and stuff, and Florida, Carolina, a lot closer.
Well, I mean, Florida did have to travel from Toronto. It was Game 1. It's in Carolina, right?
Game 1 is in Carolina. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had Florida traveling from Toronto to.
I'm assuming they went right to Carolina.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
This is the best Hurricanes team in the Rod Brind'Amour era, in my opinion, and I think it comes back to goaltending. The X factor is goaltending. Freddie Anderson has been phenomenal with the 136 goals against and a save percentage of 930 plus. And if he keeps this play up, it's going to be hard for the Panthers to crack it. And maybe the Panthers will get goalie instead of the Hurricanes. And Bobrovsky's not a slight either. He has been phenomenal in the playoffs these last few games, especially in the second round, like we mentioned earlier. And it is a big test for the Hurricanes. They played a banged-up New Jersey team, beat them in 5. Played a Washington team that maybe they weren't Stanley Cup contenders after all. If that's a hot take, don't know. And now you face the defending Stanley Cup champions in what is going to be your first real matchup, the playoffs.
Yeah, this is going to be a really, really interesting matchup for me. It's just, I think the biggest thing for me is can Freddie Anderson sustain, his great play. I think this Florida team is too good to kind of fall into the same trap the Capitals did. I think Carolina's going to try to impose their will, and they might even take Game 1. But I think Paul Maurice is too good of a coach to not make adjustments. I think this Florida team is too well disciplined. They have too many veteran players who have been there, done that. They know how to handle any kind of situation, any kind of team. They have one of the best defensive forwards in the league in Alexander Barkov, another really underrated defenseman forward in Sam Reinhart. And then maybe I'm not gonna make that joke, a little tasteless actually. I make a Sam Bennett joke, but not saying that. But I think this is going to be really, really physical, gritty hockey. I don't think it's going to be fun to watch if you're a fan of high-scoring games, but if you're a fan of the defensive, high-stakes, high-intense hockey, it's going to be actually a pretty good series to watch.
Yeah, and a lot of people call the Hurricanes boring around social media for the way that they play, but you know what?
They play boring, but that's winning hockey.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. It's winning hockey, and if it gets them a championship or gets them a Cup Finals appearance, the Hurricanes and their fans don't care. They'll win every game 1-0. If they sweep the Panthers like that, then so be. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
I hope that every game's not 1-0.
I mean, if every game's 1-0, then fuck, man.
If the Hurricanes win every game 1-0, Frederick Anderson's going to the Hall of Fame just for this playoff run.
I'm pretty sure his goals against would dip below 1 if he went 4 straight with the shutty. That would be wild.
That would be insane. What was his save percentage? We get up to 950 something. Yeah, that'd be ridiculous.
What are your?
Are we ready to do predictions? Or you
Dude, you're literally reading my mind in this series. Yeah, I was so ready for predictions.
You could tell we're a little less interested in this series than Dallas and Edmonton for both personal reasons, and I think that series is going to be much more exciting. But nonetheless, I'm taking the Panthers in 7.
I got the Hurricanes in 7. I
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna doubt the king until someone takes the crown, and until someone takes the crown, I think the Panthers are the team to beat.
That makes sense. I think in this series I'm going more with my heart than my mind. My mind thinks that the Panthers are the better team, but I'm like, you know what? I want the Hurricanes to win. I think it's going to be tough, but I think they'll get it done in 7. And if the Panthers end up winning in 6 games, I'm not going to be shocked. Of course I'll sit here and say I was wrong, but overall though, I want to throw a little bit of, me wanting the Hurricanes to win in 7.
So one thing before we finish up, I think it'd be fun. We only have 4 teams left, so less to choose from. If either of these 4 teams win the cup, who is your Conn Smythe winner from that team?
We're going Carolina, Frederick Anderson,
Yeah, I think
Svechnikov.
most 3 of the 4 of these are easy picks.
Svechnikov is a very close second. Florida, hear me out. Brad Marchand.
I was gonna go with Brad Marchand or Eetu Luosterainen. They've both been
Fucking love it.
amazing. That third line has been so good for the Panthers.
Love it. All right. Dallas, Mikko Rantanen. Easy.
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 Yeah, easy.
Edmonton is tough for me. I think it will be McDavid.
I think it's Connor McDavid. I think Draisaitl's been terrific as well. They've both been amazing. No, and this guy won't get any votes, but I think an underrated player for the Oilers has really been John Klingberg. He kind of came out of nowhere. I think they signed him mid-season, and he didn't really play that much in the regular season. But he's been amazing for them in the playoffs. So was Evander Kane, but just what Connor McDavid does off the score sheet, I think, is just so impressive. And he's second in the league in points in playoffs, only behind Mikko Rantanen, who's having an insane playoff run as well. Literally the only reason why Dallas is even in this place, because if he doesn't put the team on his back in Game 7, Round 1, their first round exits.
Yeah, so Dallas is easy. Yeah, I guess Edmonton's easy. I think the only one I'd have trouble with are actually Carolina and Florida.
I think Carolina's pretty easy. I think Frederick Anderson's having a historic playoff run right now.
He is for sure, but if Carolina gets to the finals and let's say Anderson keeps this up, but then you're 17 games in, right? And you're like 2 games away from a finals win, and Svechnikov has like 13 goals in 17 games, like that's also very impressive as well too. So I think it'd be a toss up. My edge does of course go to Frederick Anderson because I mean without him this team is eliminated by now, and he's played phenomenal.
I don't know. I mean, I still think they would have been here even if he was playing, at a normal level. But
Yeah, I guess because the Capitals are frauds and the Devils are banged up. So
I mean, I think they would have. I think they would have beat the Devils anyway. But
yeah,
I think Capitals would have. I think they would have at least pushed to 6 or 7. I mean, we keep down. I keep doubting the Hurricanes. You're finally getting on the Hurricanes train. So
one of us is gonna be right and wrong after this.
I mean, I think we're having a Cup final rematch. I think we're running the back with Edmonton and Florida. You think we're doing Dallas and Carolina. I mean, we'll be excited no matter what. This is the best time of the year. Best hockey you're going to get right now, the conference final on both sides. I expect 2 very intense series, 2 very close series, and may the best team win.
I'm going to jump off a cliff if we get Edmonton and Florida. I really will.
I think it's inevitable. I think they're on a collision course right now.
Unfortunately.
Florida's overcome, everything so far. Their depth is worse this year. Bobrovsky's been okay. He's had some really strong games, some not so great games, but their depth keeps showing up, and maybe eventually Sam Reinhart and Alexander Barkov will start contributing a little bit more on the score sheet. But for now, like the bottom 6, especially the third line, has been kind of carrying the load, and they're just so good defensively. And then Edmonton, they've overcome every obstacle in their way in kind of dominating fashion. So I think those 2 teams are genuinely on a collision course.
That's going to end it for today's episode. If you guys enjoy all of our content, head down to the description below to subscribe and hit the notification bell, as well as check out all of our social media. We'll see you guys in our next episode.